got this guy going. Yeah, so that should be going. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, there we go. All right, so we should be live right now. I'm just going to readjust here. And let's take make sure we get everything nice and level. Okay, so we're trying a little bit of a different format here today, trying to kind of adjust what's going on, how we see things. And I have no idea if anybody's here can hear me yet. But what I'm going to do is let me pull up the live chat. And so if you want to chat about anything, just enter something in the chat stream. I want to see, we should be live right now. Okay, yeah, there we are. Okay, so it is March 17th right now, 2024, and doing my weekly live stream live chats. And I try to keep these at 30 minutes. They usually go to about 45. But I'm just opening up for questions. So I'm getting more and more followers. If you're new here, what I talk about really is what it's like to be a musician here in Nashville. You know, all the kind of the quirks that come along with it and the learning curve climbing up the ladder. Give me one moment so I can close that window. All right, there we go. So what I've been doing is I've been doing 1 or 2 live streams a week where I try to live stream at least 1 or 2 of my shows, do a live chat every Sunday, and I try to release a couple videos each week to give people an idea of what the journey is like coming into Nashville, starting a music career again. Just quick Reader's Digest version is that I was out of the music business for a good 10 years because of injuries, and then when I moved to Nashville, I didn't plan on being a musician, but after about a year of living here, I decided to make the transition to a full-time musician. And I wanted to document all the things I've learned along the way. Because one of the biggest stumbling blocks about my career when I was younger is that there was a lot of lessons that I didn't really fully grasp. Maybe because it was maturity, maybe because I just wasn't at the right place to receive it. But having that time off, I've gotten quite a different perspective, and I'm really approaching my music career in a totally different way now, starting over again. And I found that trying new things has led to a lot of success very quickly that I didn't realize was effective, and I wish I would have implemented when I was younger. So I started doing my YouTube channel just as a way of, well, I should have a social media presence. Maybe I'll make something to help out other people, share my experiences along the way. And I found that there's just really this big hole in the music industry for people talking about what it's really like to be a musician in a very real way, not in the social media way where you want to present everything as better than it is, in a way that you want to promote yourself using somewhat false or misleading narratives. So that's why I'm here. And I've been at this place before right now on my live chats where first 5 minutes, nobody shows up. And I just talk on the mic for 5 minutes, hoping that somebody shows up, but I also keep these up on my channel so people can see how this process goes. But then most times when this happens, by the end of the chat, there's probably 50, 60 people in the chat room. Hey, Joel. Good to see you again. Joel from Arizona. So, Joel, your feedback has been really good on my live streams. Thank you so much. Joel's been tuning into my live shows, and sometimes I'm trying a couple new things with the streaming, and Joel will point out, point out something about the audio levels. So I'll probably go back over this again, Joel, but so this is right here. This is what I've been trying out this week. This is a little Focusrite. It's a 2i2 interface. So it connects via USB-C and it can connect right to my iPhone. So what I've been doing is taking the feed from my monitors, and I've been feeding that into my little Focusrite interface, putting that into my iPhone and streaming it live. So Joel, on Friday, you're like, I can't hear anything. I had the wrong USB cable plugged into my phone that was not connected to the interface. And so I made that adjustment about 20, 30 minutes in. So better late than never. And then yesterday when you were watching the live stream, I had 2 separate live streams up. One, I had the GoPro in front of the stage, and the other one, I had my drum cam to the side going to my audio interface. It was a situation where I was asking the sound engineer, hey, could I get a stereo feed? This is what I do. And they gave me this kind of, not deer in the headlights look, but, oh yeah, we'll get to it. And I asked him like 45 minutes before, then 30 minutes before, then 15 minutes, and just, oh yeah, I'm working on it, man, I'm trying to figure it out. And he did not figure it out. So I just took a daisy chain from my monitor, and I listened back to a little bit of the audio, and it didn't sound that great. But this is part of the process, right? Just everything can't be perfect at once, and you just got to keep it moving along. So we have a few other people joining the chat. If you're joining the chat, tell me where you're from. Why are you here? If there's any questions I can answer for you. I was going to talk about maybe equipment insurance today, because that's something I've been researching and dealing with lately, because music is my business and you need to have your business insured. What if all your instruments suddenly disappear one day? What do you do? And most homeowners insurance policies do not cover musical instruments. So thinking about that. Yeah, so Joel, so Joel was commenting, if you can, I did a Friday live stream where I had a camera out front where you're like a fly on the wall. Then I was back in this drum booth at this venue, and I actually fed my in-ear monitor mix to my iPhone. And yeah, vocals are a lot more prominent there. And sometimes it's just like I can fix the mix on the fly. Sometimes, like as was on Friday was the case, there was a new sound guy on the gig, and and if you actually go back and watch the stream, you can hear me continuously asking the sound engineer, hey, I need a little bit less vocals in my ears. They are clipping, that's all I can hear. And after asking about 10 times and not getting results, it's probably not going to happen, so I just keep things moving. But I also have that live stream from my gig. I have that up where you can hear the talkback mic. And a lot of stages in Nashville have talkback mics where only the musicians can hear it if we're on these in-ears. So somebody can be playing, and let's say like this camera is the front of the stage. We usually have a mic back here. Maybe somebody's playing, say, all right, here the chord progression is, it's a 45-15. So which means a bar of the 4 chord, bar of the 5 chord, bar of the 1 chord, bar of the 5 chord. But the audience can't hear that, but everyone on the ears can hear it. They're like, hey guys, what do you guys want to do this song? And then only the musicians can hear, kind of like the banter between the musicians and on stage. So I have that live stream up, and I think I have that as a members only section. I think it's $5 a month to join, to be able to get access to that. And I have about like 50 other videos in that members only section. But why I have that up there is because I'm trying to find very cost-effective ways to defer the cost of streaming, because streaming these shows takes a lot of data, especially when I'm using 2 cameras, and I want to give everyone as much access as possible. But like, I wanted to have a recording of a stream where you could hear the in-ears of the musicians, and you could like hear, oh, this is what people are doing on stage. This is how we are communicating. And you can see everything, good and bad. I want to give everybody as realistic a look as possible at these things, without trying to present myself as to being some unapproachable thing that I am not. And like, hearing the talkback mic, I don't find it interesting because I do it every day. But a lot of people find that interesting, and that's one thing I'm learning to do with YouTube, is that things that seem boring, normal, ordinary to me maybe aren't that boring, normal, and ordinary. They just seem that way because I'm always doing them, or a lot of us are hard on ourselves and we think what we do is not interesting, but a lot of people find what we do interesting. Hey, Paul, thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate that. I've seen you on a few live streams. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And the 2-camera system, it's really interesting. Why I started using the 2-camera system, I'll actually be right back. I'm just going to grab my GoPro and I'll show you why. So this is the GoPro I have right here, okay? And I got this in March of last year. It's a GoPro Hero 10. And I've had a lot of ups and downs with this camera, but I'm going to take this out of its case. And so this is essentially how the GoPro comes, okay? It's just this case, and I took off the side door, but then there's a USB-C port right here, okay? So no audio input whatsoever. And so if I can actually, so sometimes getting these little ears down is tricky, but you can see right here, this will usually attach to a clamp. You can secure this to a lot of different fasteners. Really, really effective. And actually last night, there was something just to mount on the wall, a GoPro mount, and I just put it right there, so it was great. But here's where it gets interesting. I bought this thing called the Media Mod. This Media Mod is, it's supposed to give you a few other options for this GoPro, and I'll show you. So I can slide this GoPro in right here, and so it charges to the USB-C. So we see a couple ports that are, so we're going to see a couple ports available right here, and let me open these up. So first we got a mini HDMI out. We also have a USB-C charger port, and then what I got this for, this 3.5mm jack right there, if you can see that. Okay, so why I got that was so that I could do things like, I could take the audio feed from the front of house or from my in-ear mix and just feed it right into this port. So I bring a little sub mixer with me, and I have 2 headphone ports on there, and I'll take one headphone port and put it right into this GoPro. So after many months of struggle, and I thought that should work, and it does work when I record. But when I stream, it records, but it doesn't record the audio stream. And it just always goes to the default mic of the GoPro. And I set up a pretty intricate system where I had ways to get a variety of mixes and ways to have room mics blended in. But no matter what I did, I could not ever get the audio feed to work in a stream. And it's a GoPro issue, because not every GoPro has this problem. You know, a friend of mine, Mojo Murphy, you guys should follow him. He's He does the Weekend Warrior series. Really smart dude. One of the best people I know, period. I've played a couple gigs with him in Cara Granger. He's in St. Louis. But he got really heavily into GoPro, and he hasn't had any problems with a couple of his GoPros with this audio issue. And one thing I've found reading a lot of user forums about GoPros is that it's a crapshoot. It's very much hit or miss. Some of them work, some of them don't. And another problem with the GoPro is like there's a lot of times it won't connect to something or it has some kind of glitch, and the best solution is pull the battery, okay? I can't pull a battery when I'm in the middle of a song, when I'm in the middle of a show, and then the whole stream goes down, and then I have to set it all back up again. It's just not possible. But also, I have this thing kind of locked into here, and then I also, the way these ears work, it's secured to something, so I have to unscrew it from its mount, take this out, and it's just not effective. And also, I've been having, right here at the top, there's this thing called a cold shoe mount. I've been putting an audio 4-track recorder on that cold shoe mount. So that's about like 2 pounds. And there's cables attached to it. It's a pretty intricate setup. I did a whole series on it called the Ultimate Gig Case Setup. And it had lots of potential, but my error was I was expecting this GoPro to work as advertised, and it doesn't. So I was like, well, I want to do an audio stream of my gigs. What can I do? And I went to get an IK Multimedia, I think it's called an iRig or iStream, something like that. So I can connect it to my phone, but they've been all sold out. They're on back order. So I just said, okay, well, what's something I can small that I can fit into my backpack or a case? And so I'm experimenting with this right now. And so far, this has worked out really well. I just need to get into a few more venues. But I also have a universal audio Volt that I'm going to try out. And I'm just doing that so I can give people some better audio of live streams in my gigs, because that's, I think, a huge part of it. And I've started buying some gear because I've gotten a few donations, and I really appreciate it. And every donation I get into this channel goes right back into the channel. And I've probably lost a couple $1,000s on this channel just in data, just in hard drive space, just in paying for streaming. And it's not really a loss, it's an investment. And so anytime people donate, I say, well, okay, they like this content. I need to do things to up my game, give them more content, give them better quality content. So every time I hit a benchmark, I get a little piece of gear, and it's reinvesting into the whole process. And it's really a whole different skill set of creating content, delivering content, shooting content, marketing it. And that's aside from music, but I really want to use myself as a vehicle to explain people about what it's like working in the music industry a little bit better. Because there's a lot of preconceived notions about musicians that are wrong. And a lot of musicians themselves even think some things about the music industry, and they think, you know, like, for example, I'm going to do a video about getting endorsements coming up here and what it's like to be endorsed. And when I was younger, I was thinking that getting endorsed was going to be great and that I was going to make it, and then I wouldn't need to, I was going to be in the club forever, for life. And I was going to be able to have all these gigs and have all these free drums, and that's not the way it works. So I've been jabbering on long enough. I want to open it up here. I want to know if anybody has any questions. Anybody wants to talk about gear insurance, anyone wants to talk about gear, talk about the gigging scene in Nashville, talk about creating content. What's on your mind today? And if you're joining the live stream, again, hop on, tell me your name, tell me where you're from, tell me what brought you here. If there's anything I can help you out with, answer questions for you today. Otherwise, I would just keep on talking and talking. But yeah, this is really, I don't view this as me sitting down to give a lecture. I view this as me hanging out with friends and hanging out at a bar with friends. Maybe I'll hold court for a little while, but I really want to know what questions I can ask for people or answer for people. Is there more content you want to see, a certain type of content you want to see? I've got a few videos coming up this week. But a lot of this input is driven by you and what you want to see. So tell me, what's on your minds? Anything that you would like to see in particular? Anything that you think I need to improve upon the channel? Anything that you like? But it's really all about you. And then also I wonder when people aren't, this is what goes through my mind when people aren't chatting when you're doing these things, is that, okay, we have maybe like 1 or 2 people. I wonder how many people are bots that are watching, or how many people just have this on mute. But really, let me know what's on your minds. Because I got about like 10 or 15 minutes left here. I'm getting together with Cara Granger here, gonna pick up some gear. We played a gig last night. It was a really good gig, actually. And I hadn't rehearsed, like, actually had Cara on a sub gig on Friday. But I hadn't played with her, man, for like 5 or 6 months, I think. And us getting back together was great. Like, I love hanging out with her, I love talking to her. She's one of my favorite people, favorite musicians to play with. Her and David Guy. David's also a great musician. So Joel, Joel, thank you so much for telling me you're not a bot, and also thank you for not texting and driving. Joel's in Arizona, and he's been hopping on here. You and most of the bar. So Paul says, Aaron, you and most of the bar musicians are first class. How's a session musician different? And that's a great question. And that's always evolving, okay? Because why? Because the music industry is evolving. You know, previously, like in 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, recording was really limited in the availability, like it was cost prohibitive. And there was a very, you know, it came very like an insular world for a variety of reasons. And I have a couple theories on that, but like I also think that like touring live musicians and studio musicians were seen as different jobs in different categories, because if you work in the studio, you don't go on the road, and vice versa. And I think a lot of that was driven from maybe the fact that the guys in the studio were afraid to go on the road because they didn't want to lose their gigs, and that's just the way things worked out. Now here in Nashville, so let's define a session musician, okay? What kind of sessions are you working on? Are you working on major label sessions? Are you an independent artist? Are you working on demo sessions? Because there's also this demo industry here where you hire musicians and you come in for 4 hours and you have to demo you have to learn and fully record and demo 3 songs, you know, in 4 hours. And you don't get to hear it before. You just show up, they say, here's a song, play it. And then you come up with your parts and you record them, you get maybe 1 or 2 takes, and then you go on to the next one. You know, and then there's like major label sessions. And then there's also jingle sessions. But that session world here in town is very different, and Nashville is kind of like an industry hub. And there is still people very much in this old industry standards way of recording, and it's very much like a club, okay? And I think that's gonna change soon, but really, if you want to, I think there's a big difference between bar musicians and session musicians, is that with session musicians, you have to really make it intentional to try and break into that scene, and you have to be very patient. So instead of like and I think a lot of this applies to working as a musician in general, like what's your intention, what do you want to do? So me, case in points, there's a lot of things I want to do in terms of original music, in terms of maybe touring, in terms of recording, that if I'm constantly playing on Nashville's Broadway, I'm making good money, but I'm not making good connections into these other scenes, okay? But I also need money to pay my bills. So I need to work enough so I'm paying my bills, but then also I need to be able to say no to some gigs. So I'm like, oh, I could go play this gig and make $300, or I could go shadow somebody at this session for free. And most people would say, take that $300 gig. And maybe that is the right play. But maybe you want to start learning about the session scene, and maybe you want to intentionally start try to break into that. And I think for anybody to really know your name, for you to even have like any ground to stand on, or for them to even know anything about you, they need to see you and meet you and talk to you at least 3 or 4 times to have a good gauge of who you are before they even know anything about you. And so you would need to like go shadow sessions for multiple times before they would even know you, let alone give you a chance to like call you or say, hey, can you tune the drums for us? So it's very much like, what's your intention and what do you want? And I don't think all musicians think that way. I think sometimes musicians just to say, oh, I'll just go where the gigs are at. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're trying to make money, but like, what do you want to do? And I've seen some great musicians in bars, great musicians in smaller venues, great musicians in larger venues. It's not really the room you're playing in doesn't dictate your value. Now, because there's so many musicians on Broadway, you're going to see a pretty wide variance of skill sets. And the conditions are also very different, where you're having to just quickly move and set up and not play like you can't, like it's very much like go, 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 go. So you can never really get set. You can never really put your best foot forward because you're playing so much down there. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great skill to have. And playing a session is also very different. You're under a very different type of microscope. I think you're very much under a microscope, and it's a pressure microscope where everything is gone over with a fine-tooth comb. On Broadway, it's a pressure and tempo kind of game where like we're just trying to keep things moving, keep it going, like we are trying to like just get through as many songs as possible, keep the audience in the room. If you play a bad note, if you speed up, slow down, it's not that big of a deal. Session work's obviously going to be very, very different. But I think it all boils down to is, what's your intention? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be going? And if you can start thinking about that, that's where the real difference is at, and that's where you can really start saying, all right, this is what I want to do. Yeah, Jackie, thanks for hopping on. So Jackie is saying that Friday gig was cool to see everyone meshing together to make it happen. So for those of you that don't know, played a gig on Friday, and I usually play a regular gig every other Friday with Aaron Nichols, who's a great artist. And Aaron Nichols' wife was having a baby, and he called me about, I got maybe about like half a day's notice. And I had to pull together a full band for the next day. And I think I might do a video based on this because this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately. I could have just easily put out a cattle call like on a Facebook group and had that gig filled within 5 minutes and probably made more money. But instead I said, you know what, Aaron, I'll take over this gig for you. I'll handle booking an entirely new band for you. I will handle all the things. You go and be with your family. And that's what I really wanted, because Aaron's a guy, he's my friend, he's a musician I respect, and it was an important day for him, so I wanted to give him that. And he's somebody who I like having a relationship with, and I want him to be able to depend on me, because I want to support him, not just musically, but also just as a bandmate, because rising tide lifts all ships. So I had to put together a new band, and I could have found really anybody, but I wanted to find, this is what I was thinking about when I was putting together a band. What's going to make the music sound the best? Who are the people that I enjoy working with the most and that are reliable? Who are the musicians that I want to work with in the future? And I was viewing it as, okay, this is an opportunity for me to strengthen my relationships with some people. And also, it's usually a 4-piece gig. And I made it a 5-piece, and the money's split 5 ways instead of 4 ways. So that means less money for everybody, and I was upfront with everybody about that. Because I was also asking Cara, because we were playing the next day, and I wanted to get some time playing with her. And Cara's a great guitarist. She doesn't do a lot of Broadway stuff. She's like, oh, I would like to do some of this stuff every now and again to stay sharp. And just having her front a gig. But also fronting 4 hours of material on just a few hours' notice is quite a tall task if you don't do this regularly. So I called another couple of musicians that I really enjoy playing with. And I mean, I went through a pretty big list. And I could have just subbed out that gig or just had the venue put together a band and me not have to deal with anything. But I said, no, I want to find the right players. And then I also had to go down there and fill out the tax information to get the paycheck. And also setting up 2 different cameras and documenting this whole process and not taking any gigs before or after so I could make sure I have some flex time and just have all the bases covered. And it was a lot of work. And I made less money than I normally would. And I could have just taken the path of least resistance, made more money, taken another gig that day as well. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm thinking I want to start really investing in relationships and strengthening, I want to be selective about my time and energy, who I spend it with, the people I'm working with. But then also putting stuff up on YouTube or getting this stuff going takes time and energy. And I want to give that an appropriate amount of time and energy, and that helps everybody. That helps the musicians I'm working with because they're exposed, they have content out there. It also helps develop an audience for me. And having an audience is really important because there are many people out there playing and doing stuff that could maybe share tips like this. But you're not going to listen to them unless they have a platform to speak from. Like, I could write a book one day and no one's going to buy it unless people know who I am and say, oh, like this guy has an audience, or my audience has an understanding of me and says, oh, we value what he says. And so that's why I think building an audience is really important because you can just, jump off of that. So before I tail off too much, the whole point of Friday was I'm going to do a lot more work for a lot less pay and have a lot more stress, but looking at things as a big picture. What's my big picture? And for me, my big picture is, if you follow the Best Year of My Career series, where I'm talking about really intentionally investing into my career this year, I'm thinking I want to play music with people that are more fulfilling to me musically. I want to get on bigger stages. I want to get a better social media presence. And I also want to be just happier. And so doing that gig on Friday where I had to do all that extra work for less pay, for me, I think that aligns with that because I'm playing with people I enjoy playing with, but I'm also investing into relationships that if they get another great gig, I'm going to be in the forefront of their minds. I'm just going to, or I can get a reputation as being the guy around town who gets gigs for people, puts together solid bands. So all of it's just for me, I'm looking at things as a long-term play. And I'm probably gonna do a little video about that and explain it in a little bit more concise terms. But yeah. But we got a few minutes left here, so I want to answer questions though. If anybody has any questions, or if anyone's just hopping along for the ride, that's cool. Because I'm releasing a video this week about a little bit of a road date, what it's like going on the road for a weekend. And also what it's like to do a corporate gig. I also have started putting these live streams that I do. I've been putting them up, and some of them aren't. Some of them are just really fly on the wall, and so you can see them when they are live. But if you can't see them when they are live, or there's something you missed and you want to check them out again, you can go and they're on the page. But some of the live streams now are going to be for I have members or supporters section, and I think it's $5 a month really. So it's $5 a month if you want to see those streams, if you can't catch them when they're live. And I have a pretty big archive. I think about a couple hundred shows. I think I have to do a numbers check. But yeah, and also if you want to support the channel as well, so I've started buying some more gear, and all of that is really just based on donations. because I don't have really any expendable income being a musician and all. But so any donations go right back into this channel so I can grow it and give people more content. So you can always do that as well. And you can always say, hey, this is something I want to see more of. But also, like, if you can't donate, which I don't expect people to, any engagement really helps the channel. And right now I need to get to 1,000 followers to get to that next level of, okay, YouTube is gonna give me a little bit of money for just people watching instead of like me asking for donations, because I wanna make all this stuff as free as possible. And if I can get more traffic and more, advertisements, that helps as well. And that's not my end goal at all. My goal with this is not to make money. My goal is to get this message out to as many people as possible. So yeah, please share with your friends if you know anybody who would be interested in this stuff. But if there's no questions, I'm gonna sign off because I wanna make videos, like content for everybody here that people can digest in their own time. But I also want to know, like before I sign off, really, are there any questions, there's any feedback, anything you wanna talk about? Because this channel is really all about the viewers. It's not about me. I'm just, again, I always say this, I use myself as an example of like, this is what an ordinary person is doing. These are the things you need to do, or these are the things that I do to progress my career. Not saying you need to do that because everyone has different goals, but maybe give people an idea of what it's like to really build an independent career as a musician. But yeah, please, anybody, like, shoot me a question here. And if I don't get any questions here in the next minute or two, I'm going to sign off and start working on some new footage, some new videos. I have so many hours of footage that I need to upload here coming up, just from gigs, but also just showcasing some things. And real quickly, I wanted to get a gauge for people. What's your interest in gear? Honestly, like, I want an honest feedback on that. Are you interested in the gear it takes to make this content in the process? Are you interested in the musical gear stuff? Or are you just more or less interested in kind of like doing the networking people game aspect? Thanks, Joel. Thanks for that. Thanks for catching the Scarlett O'Hara vignette. Yeah, I also wanted to know, like, let me know what, if you're interested in the gear stuff, because I was thinking about doing a little bit more gear related things, like about GoPros, and like, okay, if you're a musician, you're a content creator, think about this, maybe get this camera instead, so you don't like struggle like I have with this setup. But then that's kind of getting off the path of my message. So I was thinking about maybe starting a separate channel and keeping those things separate. But if people on this channel are interested in, like, the technology in the gear, even like the drum gear, even the audio gear, recording gear, let me know and I'll put that stuff here. Paul, answer your question. So that's a good question. I've worked with lots of singers that have had hits, and then there's lots of people who are just like, no, I just do my independent music, or I just do this. I don't even write music. I just, perform it. Kara has had some songs that chart on blues radio. And Kara she's really interesting because she's really well known outside of Broadway. But people on Broadway are like, who's this person? It's a totally different scene. But she's really big in the singer-songwriter, guitarist world. I would suggest checking her out. And man, she has some great tunes recorded. Do we have any other questions here? Because if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to start grinding out my content for the week. And really what I also like to do is try to like prepare a bunch all at one time, so then I can, during the days, I can be practicing, I can be going out to gigs, I can be networking. Because that's the job too. It's like a job that never ends. Okay. So Joel says he would like to see more on the music and on the gear. It's great. It's great to know, Joel. Thank you. I'm interested in gear and I want to like show people gear. And I'm still going to do that, but I'm also like thinking it's very much like thinking about having success in an area, like specifically on social media. Like, I think if you just find one thing, like if you're trying to like get success through social media or get a following, take one very specific point and just hammer that and just focus around that. And then like, don't put pictures of your cat. That's why I don't talk a lot about my personal life, because like people are here to talk about music. And I just want to talk about what it's like being a musician and all these things that you don't talk about as a musician. And if I can just like, people are coming here for that and they know what to expect. You know, stuff like pictures of your cat and your friends, they're all great, but that's what social media is. And social media now is business media. And I'm really, you know, my business is a musician. So that's why okay, I want to keep things kind of siloed in separate channels, and that will help grow each of these businesses. Okay, so Jackie wants to see like what other musicians are playing, effects pedals and their amps. Okay. And Jackie, have you ever seen Rig Rundown, just out of curiosity? My buddy John Bollinger does Rig Rundown for Premier Guitar. He's really good at that stuff, and he's also a really good dude. I would check that out, but yeah, I'm going to I think I might, I'm not sure how I'm going to approach it, but I think like the tools you use is very important to the art you create. And I'm very much about making music, and I think sometimes people miss the forest for the trees with the toys. And I also was telling somebody that like, sometimes I was actually talking to another musician friend of mine. His name's Brian Zach. That's Czach. And he and I were talking yesterday. You should check out his YouTube channel as well. He's a drummer, plays with Mannheim Steamroller, Tracy Lawrence. He's doing session work in town. He's just a good dude. I love talking with him and hanging with him. Yeah, what were we talking? Talking about gear and tools. Oh yeah, he was like talking I was talking about how I have a limited amount of gear right now, and sometimes and I was over at his studio, and his studio is great, but sometimes when you have an unlimited amount of options and toys, it can be imprisoning. It's like you have all this freedom and then you become confined by it, if that makes sense. But sometimes when you have limited options, this whole world of creativity opens up for you because you're forced to really kind of look at all these options from different angles. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I might show people the gear that okay, this is what you need to do to get in and out of a gig at this venue, at this venue, at this venue, and what kind of battles you're picking. Because I always think about that. Am I taking too much gear that is going to hold me down at a gig or make it too complicated for me? You know, that becomes a distraction. Is it harder for me to play an 80-piece drum kit or a 3-piece? Yeah, thinking about things like that. So I'm gonna hop off here. But again, if I would appreciate any support financially is great. Any interaction is great. You know, if you can't support donations, send this to somebody else. I'm gonna be growing this channel a lot in the coming years. But really, why I do this is because I have people who are coming on who appreciate what I do, and it's helping people. And if there's ever something that you feel like I'm straying off course or it's not helping you or you'd like help with, let me know. Because this channel is very much the same reason why I play music, is because people enjoy it and it makes the world a better place. Oh, thank you so much, Ed. And thanks for that cap lock power, Jackie. Yeah, I guess when you do that, when you interact more with the channel, it drives more traffic or, the algorithm. And I'm not so much about chasing numbers, right? I'm not so much about satiating my ego. I am about developing an audience and learning how to communicate with people and really being that an ear and a voice to people that are oh, there's this world of professional music that is not attainable to me, that's not accessible, that I can never reach. And people are I've always fantasized about doing that. And I want to say, you can do it. It's absolutely possible. You need to have musical skills, yes, but it's more about networking, people skills, and really figuring out how to play a game, how to strategize. And maybe people said that to me when I was younger and maybe I wasn't in a place to receive it, or maybe people didn't communicate that in a way that was understandable. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to sign off here for today. I'll be having a couple videos coming out this week. Yeah, if you have, always comment in the videos, shoot me a message. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be seeing you on live streams later this week.